Now I stand in the middle of the school hallway, eyes open, staring straight ahead at a void that never blinks back. I don't live in a world of nothing though. I live in a world of echoes, textures, and the constant humbling reach of a hand that isn't mine. The darkness you see when you close your eyes tight at night is the same one I see when mine are wide open. For you, the darkness is just a place to rest. You can end it whenever you want, just by lifting your eyelids. But as for me, the light switch broke when I was 7 years old, and it never came back on. My name is Jeff. Let's dig in. In a small African village where the mornings smelled of fresh earth and the evenings echoed with children's laughter, I was born into a life of promise. My childhood was full of movement. I would run barefoot across dusty paths, chase goats away from my mother's garden, and climb mango trees as if the sky itself was calling my name. The elders often said, "This child has fire in his legs," because I never stayed in one place for a long time. I helped father fetch water from the stream, followed my mother to the market, and dreamed of becoming someone who could see far beyond the village hills. As a boy, I was full of life. My days began with the sound of roosters and ended with my mother calling my name as the sky turned orange. I woke up excited, not because life was easy, but because I was alive. Every morning felt like a gift waiting to be opened. I ran everywhere. I ran to the stream, I ran to school, I ran to my friends' houses, and sometimes I ran for no reason at all. My legs were strong, my breath was fast, and my heart was always racing with joy. I laughed loudly and often, the kind of laughter that made adults shake their heads and smile. Play was my language. I played football with a ball made from old plastic bags. I played hide and seek between mud houses. I climbed trees to steal mangoes and came down with sticky hands and proud smiles. When I fell, I stood up quickly, brushed the dust off my knees and kept running. Pain never stayed long with me. Life was simple, but it was good. At school, I was the boy who couldn't stay still. My teacher, Mrs. Tendo, used to say I had eyes like a hawk. I was always the first to spot a ladybug on the playground, or the first to finish copying the spelling words from the chalkboard. I loved arts more than anything. I remember the way the wet blue paint looked when it mixed with yellow on my paper, turning into a beautiful grassy green. I was the fastest kid in the second grade. I loved the way the wind felt on my face as I raced my friends, always keeping my eyes locked on the finish line. I was independent. I didn't need a hand to hold. I needed room to run. Sundays were my favorite days of the week. Our church was old and made of heavy stone, but it felt alive because of the windows. They were huge, filled with pictures made of colored glass. I would spend the whole service watching the sun move. I used to follow the words in the hymnal with my finger, watching the black notes hop across the page like little birds. I'd look up at the pastor and see his white hair and the way his hands moved when he spoke. I felt like I saw everything God had made, and it was all so clear. I was Jeff, the boy who saw the world, the boy who did everything himself, the boy who never imagined the lights could go out. Then came the day. It was just an ordinary Tuesday. We were playing at the village square after school. I remember the sound of laughter, the smell of cut grass, and the bright, blinding glare of the afternoon sun. Then I heard a sharp crack. A stray stone kicked up by someone's shoe or thrown by mistake, came out of nowhere. I didn't even have time to blink. It hit my eye with the force that felt like a mountain falling on me. There was a flash of white heat, and then, for the first time in my life, the colors started to run together. I didn't know then that the Hawkeyes I was so proud of were seeing their last sunset. I am sorry, Mom, but your son is blind now. The doctor's words, me? Blind? How? I was just okay playing some few minutes back. It took me time to comprehend this, followed by a lot of struggles. From a person who can help himself to a person who needs help. After the hospital, I expected to wake up and see the ceiling fan or the glow of my dinosaur nightlight. But the after was a heavy, suffocating velvet. At first, I lived in a state of almost. I would reach for my glasses, thinking they were just dirty. I would rub my eyes until they hurt, hoping I could scrub the shadows away. But the doctors used words like irreversible and permanent. My mom's voice became my only map. She would lead me from the bed to the bathroom, her hand firm on my shoulder. I hated that hand. Every time she guided me, it reminded me that I was no longer the boy who would run races. I was a boy who could be defeated by a misplaced shoe on the floor. At first, my world felt like it had closed its doors. Darkness replaced colors. Familiar paths became frightening. Faces I once recognized by sight now existed only as voices. The boy who once ran freely now moved slowly, carefully, afraid of falling, afraid of being lost. Everything had to change. One morning, shortly after the accident, I tried to pour myself a glass of orange juice. In my head, I could see the glass perfectly. But in reality, I couldn't tell when the liquid reached the rim. I felt the cold sting of the juice running over my fingers and splashing onto the floor. I stood there in the kitchen, soaking wet and shivering, crying because a 7-year-old boy shouldn't be defeated by a carton of juice. My mom rushed in to help, but her sympathy felt like a weight. I didn't want a hug. I wanted to be able to pour a drink without making a mess. With time, my mom introduced me to a woman who brought me a long white stick. "This is your cane, Jeff," she said. "It is not a crutch. It is your new eyes." The first time I tapped it against the floor, I heard a clack. That sound told me the floor was hard. When I tapped the rug, it felt like a soft thud. I realized the world was still there. It was just talking to me in a different language. I had to stop mourning the colors so I could start listening to the echoes. The first day back to school, new school for a changed person like me. Blind. Now I'm blind. No seeing light anymore. I would have loved to describe my surrounding, but then, sorry, I was blind. I didn't walk. I shuffled. I wore a patch over my eye, but it didn't matter. The other eye had followed the first into the darkness. I sat at my desk, but the magic colors of the art corner were gone. I could hear other children playing tag outside. The thud of their feet on the pavement sounded like a heartbeat I wasn't part of anymore. I have to get used to that rhythm first. I sat on the bench, gripping my knees, terrified to move. If I stepped forward, Would I fall into a hole? Would I hit a wall? I felt like a ghost haunting my own classroom. I could hear the teacher's chalk scratching on the board, but it was a language I couldn't speak anymore. I wasn't Jeff the athlete or Jeff the artist. I was just Jeff the blind boy. Then, a girl named Sarah reached out. She didn't say anything, but she put a piece of paper in my hand. It wasn't flat, it had bumps on it. "It's your name," she whispered. In the new way, my fingers brushed over the dots. It was the first time in weeks that the world felt like it was talking to me again. And that is how the days that followed were. My fingers brushed over dots. It is my new life, and so I live. During holidays, I could no longer fetch water alone. I could not climb trees. I could not walk without someone holding my hand. Tasks I once did without thinking now required help. And with that help came something heavier: pity. Some children stopped playing with me. Others whispered, a few laughed, and I heard it all. Each sound reminded me that I was no longer the boy I used to be. Many nights I cried quietly, asking why this had happened to me. But African wisdom says, when one door closes, another opens, if the heart is patient enough to listen. Every Sunday morning was even lonelier. I would sit in our usual corner, but the stained glass windows were gone. I couldn't see the ruby red light or the sapphire blue. I felt like God couldn't see me either. When the congregation stood up to sing, I stayed seated. I didn't have my hymnal. I didn't have the words because I could no longer see them. I felt a hot tear track down my cheek. I was surrounded by people, yet I have never felt more alone. Slowly, very slowly, I learned to fight my fear. I needed to do away with this loneliness, so this was the only way. At first, fear walked beside me like a shadow I could not escape. Every step felt dangerous, as if the ground might suddenly disappear beneath my feet. I remember standing at the doorway of my house, my toes touching the cold mud floor, my heart pounding. I was terrified to move. The world felt too big for someone who could not see it. That was when I began counting my steps. 1 step, 2 step, 3. I whispered the numbers under my breath like a prayer. If I lost count, panic would rush through me and I would freeze, afraid I had wandered too far. Once I miscounted and crashed onto a wall. The pain stung, but the laughter I heard nearby hurt far worse. I wanted to run back inside and never try that again. I started listening to everything. The sound of my mother's bangles told me she was near. The soft crunch of gravel warned me I was leaving the path. Birds became my sky and footsteps became my map. Sometimes the world spoke kindly to me, but other times it mocked me. When people sighed impatiently as I struggled to walk, discouragement wrapped around my chest like a tightrope. My hands became my eyes. I traced walls, doors, and trees, memorizing their shapes. I burnt my fingers once by touching a hot pot, and I cried for hours after. I asked myself, why even try? I felt broken, slower than everyone else, left behind, and yet, every time I fell, I forced myself to stand up. My knees were bruised, my confidence shaken, but something inside me refused to stay down. The fear of being lonely again. Each small victory mattered. Reaching the well alone, finding my bed without help, walking a few steps than yesterday. These moments were quiet but powerful. Discouragement followed me every day, whispering that I was weak, that I would never be enough. But I learned not to listen to that voice. I learned that courage does not shout, it breathes quietly and keeps going. I may have lost my sight, but I did not lose my courage. In the darkness, I found a different way to see myself. My mother taught me that needing help does not mean weakness. My father, on the other hand, told me that a person's value is not measured by what the eyes can see, but by what the soul can carry. The elders reminded me that many great journeys begin with pain. Acceptance did not come in one day. It came in small moments. The first time I walked across the compound alone using a stick. The first time I laughed again without forcing it. The first time I realized that I was still Jeff, whole, worthy, and alive. I understood that blindness had taken my sight, but it had not taken my future. As I grew older, I became known not for what I had lacked, but for what I had gained. Patience, wisdom, and a deep understanding of human beings. I listened more than I spoke, and I felt more than I feared. And in a strange way, I began to see life more clearly than many who still had their sight. In the village, they began to say, "Jeff sees with his heart." And I believed it too, because sometimes the greatest vision is not found in the eyes, but in the courage to accept change and keep walking forward.